Hallo, ek is Iti. Welkom by my kanaal waar ons als saam doen. Mits and tensy. Both of these are Afrikaans conjunctions and we use them in conditional sentences. In this video, I will explain the meaning of each. I'll give you plenty of examples as well as how to use them in sentences, how to change the word order. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will have leveled up where Afrikaans conjunctions and conditional sentences are concerned. Before we start with mits, there are two videos that I can recommend you watch on my channel. The one is the Stompie video, which explains Afrikaans word order. And the other one is the as conjunction video and conditional sentence video. As is the Afrikaans for if. And in that video, you learn all about Afrikaans if statements and how the word order change depending on where you put or place the conjunction in a conditional sentence. So those two are valuable, I think, and a good base to have before you start on other conditional sentences and conjunctions in Afrikaans. Mits and tensy. Those two are often confusing and people are not sure where to use which one and what they mean. The meaning of mits is provided that, providing, provided, on the understanding that, and on the condition that. But I will say that the best translation for mits to English would be provided that, providing or just provided as a conjunction. But it does mean on the understanding that, on the condition that. So that's just important to keep in mind. It implies a positive outcome if a specific condition is met. And the word order there would be the first sentence, as is. Then you have mits. Then the second sentence will change word order. So the second sentence, when it was lone standing, you had the subject and verb following each other. Subject and then verb. But when it becomes a conditional sentence with mits in the middle, the second sentence changes to subject, then all of the words, and then the verb moves to the back of the sentence. So that's important. If all of this is a little bit confusing still, don't worry. This video has plenty of examples that you can take a look at, and hopefully by the end of it, you will understand more and this will make more sense. Right, so something to keep in mind. On the condition that has a specific translation in Afrikaans, which is op voorwaarde dat. So just keep that in mind, that if the English is on the condition that, there is an actual specific translation. It's not wrong to translate to mits, because the meaning is still the same, or the meaning is still there, but there is op voorwaarde dat, which is the exact translation. Then we have another conjunction, which is indien, which can mean in case or if, depending on how you're using it. We will take a look at those in a different video. So I'll make one for indien, and there's a couple of others. Right, so the example there, we have sentence 1, which is die plan sal werk. It means the plan will work. And then we have sentence 2, ons werk almal saam. We all work together. So those are the separate sentences. When put together with mits as a conjunction in the middle, we have die plan sal werk mits ons almal saamwerk. Now, there's also a video that explains, quite a few of my videos that explains verbs that when put in a sentence in a certain way, it's one word, and then in a different way, it's two words. Saamwerk is one of those. When it's at the end of the sentence, like here in this conditional sentence, it's one word. When it's in the separate sentences, then it's not one word. Then it is werk, the verb, and then the rest of it is at the end, saam. So that makes it a little bit more difficult, because it's not one word that just moves. It's two words and then becomes one word at the end. It's not the case for all of the Afrikaans verbs. Many of the Afrikaans verbs are just one word, and that will just move from its original place to the back of the sentence. But then you've got these two separate situations. And so what you can keep in mind is if it's a separate verb or verb that's separated in the lone standing sentence, when you get to the conditional sentence, you just look for the verb in the lone standing sentence that was just after the subject. And that part of the verb you move to the back of the sentence. But you will have to study Afrikaans verbs and things much more in depth to know which ones are verbs that separate and can be used separately and which ones not, because that does become a little bit intricate when it comes to sentence construction and word order. Okay, I just took off my glasses because the reflection was killing me. It's so annoying to watch someone. You just see the reflection flashing half their eyes away and you can't see what's going on. And it's just, yeah. So I took it off. I can see well enough without them. I'll have to make a plan with my lighting so I can actually wear glasses and not have you look at a reflection constantly. But we'll get to that. All right, so back to myths. At the top, there is an example of the sentence word order for that particular conditional sentence. So you can peruse that while we go through the examples. So we've got sentence 1, ons sal met vakansie gaan, which is we will go on holiday or we will go on vacation. Sentence 2, ons spaar genoeg geld, which is we save enough money. Then we've got the conditional sentence in Afrikaans. Ons sal met vakansie gaan, mits ons genoeg geld spaar. Now there, spaar is the one and only verb in the initial sentence 2 or the original sentence 2, and it just moves to the back of the whole conditional sentence. And then we've got the English translation, which is we will go on a holiday provided that we save enough money. The next example, also, sentence 1 and sentence 2 is sin 1 and sin 2 in Afrikaans. All right, sentence 1, ek sal die kontrak teken, which means I will sign the contract. Sentence 2, or so, ooh, I'm mixing my tails. Sentence 2, die voorwaardes is duidelik, which means the conditions are clear. Conditional sentence in Afrikaans. Ek sal die kontrak teken mits die voorwaardes duidelik is. In English, I will sign the contract provided that the conditions are clear. And then the last example there, sentence 1, jy kan by ons aansluit, which means you can join us. Sentence 2, jy handel jou huiswerk af, which means you finish your homework or you complete your homework. Conditional sentence in Afrikaans, jy kan by ons aansluit mits jy jou huiswerk afhandel. Now there, again, we've got the handel af when it's the separate sentence, and then afhandel. And that one, it's not handel af. You don't add them together in the order that they were in the sentence, in the original sentence where they were separate. Because there it was handel, and then at the end of the sentence, af. But when you have the conditional sentence and you add those two together, it's af, the one that was at the back first, and then handel, afhandel. So at the end of the day, the verb that followed the subject in the lone standing sentence, it really does go to the complete back of the sentence. It becomes one with af, but it still is really at the end of the sentence, afhandel. So you have to study those, and there are quite a lot of them. Then the English, you can join us, provided that you finish your homework. Here we have mits at the beginning of the conditional sentence, and you really have to now take a look at the word order there at the top quite closely, because we have mit, then sentence 2. And if mit is in the beginning, your sentence 2, the subject will be in the beginning, then everything else, then the verb at the end of that first part, then the comma. Then we've got sentence 1, and then we've got the auxiliary verb first, which is your sal, kan, those kinds of verbs. Then the subject, then everything else, and then the verb at the end. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Study that word order because they do differ. And this is what makes the conditional sentences so tricky. And then here follows all the examples. I'm just going to quickly read through them. Sentence 1. Hulle sal hom vergewe. Sentence 2. Hy vra om verskoning. Mits hy om verskoning vra, sal hulle hom vergewe. And the English, provided that he apologizes, they will forgive him. Then we have sentence 1, ons sal vanmiddag oefen. Sentence 2, die swembad is oop. Mits die swembad oop is, sal ons vanmiddag oefen. And the English, providing the pool is open, we will train this afternoon. The last one there, sentence 1, jy sal die instruksies verstaan. Sentence 2, jy luister aandagtig. Mits jy aandagtig luister, sal jy die instruksies verstaan. In the English, provided you listen carefully, you will understand the instructions. So both of these word order are important. I think mits most commonly will be used in the middle of a sentence, much less common to use mits when you speak, I think, in Afrikaans, in the beginning of a sentence. But theoretically and technically, you can. So I think in the middle of the sentence, maybe that's more important to first learn that word order and what changes. And then after that, study and learn what goes where when mits is at the beginning of the sentence. Tensy, translated is unless. And if you go to a little bit older English or a formal English, the word save, and not the one meaning saving a life, the word save used in the same way as we use unless. But for the most part, if you want to know what it translates to, unless is the one. Now, unless in Afrikaans or Tensy in Afrikaans is used in many different ways, just as you would use unless in English in many different ways. So let's look at those. Firstly, it implies a negative outcome, or it can be a negative sentence with the double nies that you get in Afrikaans, right? So, but it can imply a negative outcome unless a specific condition is met. So something negative will happen unless this and this and this is done. But for this specific example, I was referring to a negative statement, not just a negative outcome, but a negative statement using the double nies of Afrikaans, because that makes it more complex because of where they move depending on where you use tensy, whether it's in the middle or the beginning of the sentence. So when it involves a ni statement, a negative statement, the sentence 1 includes only the first ni. And this is important. And we'll go over it again. You'll see translations and they'll have sentence 1 with both of the nies before the comma and before the conjunction. That is not how we write. If you want to be specific, if you want to be correct, it's not how we speak and write. When it's a conditional sentence and you've got sentence 1 in the beginning, and then the conjunction, in this case, tensy, the sentence 1 will only include the first ni. The second ni of sentence 1 moves to the very back of the entire conditional sentence after the verb in the second part. And we'll go through this and you'll see the example. So then you'll have tensy, then the second sentence you'll have subject, the verb, and then that second ni of the first sentence moves to the very back. You cannot trust ChatGPT with these translations. It gets it wrong all the time. constantly. So it'll translate this and it'll have both of the ni's in the first part, like English. So it'll just do exactly what the English does, but English doesn't have a double negative. So it has the negative statement in the first sentence, and it translates Afrikaans exactly the same way with both of the ni's in the first part. Not the case. Google Translate, strangely enough, actually does this correctly. So they've definitely worked on the translation Afrikaans, English to Afrikaans in Google Translate, because it does get the moving the second ni to the very back. It does get that correct. All right, and then the second thing is just a specific action takes place. It doesn't have a double ni. So this is just to show you what happens if there's not a double negative Afrikaans sentence involved. It's an action takes place. It could be a negative or a positive action. And it's going to take place unless a specific condition is met. So the examples will clarify this more. And then I give you both of the sentence constructions there. Sentence one with tensy, then subject verb at the end, or if tensy is in the beginning, then you've got subject verb at the end of the second sentence, and then at the back, the auxiliary verb, subject verb at the end. We will go through all of that. It makes more sense if you see the examples. Tensy in the middle. You have sentence one, and then in sentence one, you only use the first ni when you form the conditional sentence. The second ni will move to the very back of the entire sentence after the verb that has also moved to the back in the in the second part. Oh my word. So you'll see that we've got tensy in the middle. Then the second sentence, you have subject, lots of stuff. The verb moves to the end of the end of the sentence, and then that second ni of the first sentence moves to the back of that verb. So study this one closely. At the very bottom of this clip, you'll see a sentence that says "Hulle kan nie speel nie," and then I made a little circle around the second ni and an arrow pointing to the very end of the sentence. When it's a conditional sentence, that second ni in the first sentence moves to the back. Then it has to be hulle kan nie speel tensy hulle toestemming het nie. Right. Examples. Sentence 1, ons sal nie swem nie. Sentence 2, die weer verbeter. Then we have, ons sal nie swem tensy die weer verbeter nie. The English, we will not swim unless the weather improves. Then, sy sal nie kom nie, and jy nooi haar becomes sy sal nie kom tensy jy haar nooi nie. And then we won't come unless you invite her. The last example, hulle kan nie speel nie. Hulle het toestemming. Hulle kan nie speel tensy hulle toestemming het nie. And the English, they may not play unless they have permission. Keep in mind, if you try to get these things, these conditional sentences from ChatGPT, it will lead you astray and it will put the double negative in the beginning, both of them before tensy. So rather learn the correct grammar and word order from this video. Tensy at the beginning, still with the double negative examples. The first one there, jy kan nie uitgaan nie, jy maak jou huiswerk klaar. Now we've got tensy at the beginning, so now tensy jy jou huiswerk klaar maak, kan jy nie uitgaan nie. Now this one's completely different from the one before, wherein you've got tensy then the second sentence, and then you've got the double negative in its original sentence at the back. So it's not a double negative, a double negative that splits and the one stays where it was and the one moves. It's not that. There are other things in the word order that does change. So you'll see at the top, sentence 2, the verb moves to the end, and then you've got sentence 1 now is auxiliary verb subject, and then the verb moves to the end. So there's still changes. Still changes that happens to both sentence 1 and 2, just not the double negative that remains in its original sentence. So another thing to learn. Then we've got die kontrak sal nie onderteken word nie And the second sentence, albei partye stem in. Then we've got tensy albei partye instem. And there's another little verbie for you that now is one word and not two. Tensy albei partye instem, sal die kontrak nie onderteken word nie. That means unless both parties agree, the contract will not be signed. And then the last example, jy kan nie ingaan nie. Jy wys identifikasie. Which is, tensy jy identifikasie wys, kan jy nie ingaan nie. Unless you show identification, you cannot enter. Now, tensy in the middle and the beginning, when it's not a double negative, when there's not a nie sentence, the first sentence, but simply an outcome that is negative or positive, unless this or that condition is met. So I give you both of the examples. When tensy is in the middle, there at the top, sentence one remains as is. Completely as is for a change. It doesn't change. And then you've got tensy, and then sentence two is subject, everything else, and then the verb moves to the end. If tensy is in the beginning of the sentence, we have tensy, then subject, everything else, and then the verb moves to the end. Then you have the comma, and then you have auxiliary verb, subject, blah, 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 and then the verb at the end. So it's different from when there's a double negative involved. Sentence 1, ek gaan die iPhone koop. Sentence 2, sin 2, jy het 'n beter voorstel. And then the examples there are, ek gaan die iPhone koop tensy jy 'n beter voorstel het. And then that will translate, I'm going to buy the iPhone unless you have a better suggestion. And then if you put tensy in the beginning, tensy jy 'n beter voorstel het, gaan ek die iPhone koop. Unless you have a better suggestion, I am going to buy the iPhone. Okay, you made it. I hope this video has helped you, and I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know in the comment section. If it's helped you, also let me know. Yeah, I hope this was meaningful. You guys must have an awesome day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.